I'm afraid it's been 9 years.
Killing Floor 2 is a co-op PvE wave shooter with tons and tons of mechanics and chunky gunplay. And that's it. I don't mean the title to be controversial for the sake of views or something. I never care about views, but this game bothers me. Everyone pretty much universally praised this game when it launched, and its hype stayed the way it is for years to come. Killing Floor 2 has everything I hate about games: incredibly slow movement, exceptionally punishing design choices, lack of any tangible reason to play, no immersion, incredibly stale formula, and I can go on. So I will throughout this video. For lack of a better term, this game is a curiosity, and the only reason it found the success it did is because it fills a very specific niche some people want and actively seek. Gaming has been a mainstream media for a long time now. There are millions of gamers and enough players to go around for every genre. It just so happens that if you wanted a wave defense multiplayer game that isn't tacked onto some unrelated game as a side thing most people won't even think twice about, you only have Killing Floor, and that's enough if the success of the game is anything to go by. Despite the strong opening, I do like this game, even though I find it boring to play more than 10 minutes at a time. Wave defense is clearly not my cup of tea, and that's okay. That's a bit of a contradiction now, is it? How do I like a game while finding it boring? In general, humans are bad at articulating why they like or dislike something. Feelings aren't exactly an objective measurement of how good something is. I thought long and hard about why I feel indecisive about this game, and the conclusion I reached was a rather boring, logical one. I like the mechanical depth and hate everything else. That might not sound that it equals to me being indecisive. Many great games, more often than not, blend mechanics, art, and design into a cohesive whole. Despite KF2 not being one of those games, the amount of thought and effort gone into the wave defense formula alongside many different mechanics all interacting with one another prevents me from outright labeling KF2 as a bad game. I would be outright disrespectful if I discount the amount of mechanics in this game to be just doesn't really matter for the whole, and I'm not that type of person. Someone spent hours and hours coding million status effects, dozens of intricate interactions between U and Zs, and it would be genuinely stupid to discount all that effort. The mechanics section of the wiki alone is one of the most interesting things I read in my life, and it really goes to show the amount of brain power that goes into making a game. Don't take this as me being good at the game. I understand the mechanics, but I simply can't play this game at a high level. There are reasons for that, of course, but one of which is simply skill issue. People can play this game at a high level, but I'm not one of them. Which will be a rarity for this channel, since whatever game I cover, I'm usually above average at it. KF2 isn't one of them, and it's never going to be one for me. That being said, I have very valid reasons why I simply don't care to improve in this game. And just because I'm bad at the game doesn't make my opinion on it any less relevant, since this video isn't going to be a deconstruction of the game's mechanics and how it plays, but rather everything else about it. There are several reasons why I find this game boring. The gameplay and the formula is stale, the game can be exceptionally punishing, very slow and limited player movement, and lack of any immersive elements. Let's go from easy to complex. The movement in Killing Floor 2 is very slow and deliberate. That's mostly to accommodate the design. This is a wave defense game that is all about combat, and faster movement speed would be you could just run away while taking pot shots. You can still do that with select few perks, but for most perks, you better be at your A game cause you're not running away. Even though the movement is so slow, at the end of a wave it usually takes 20 to 30 seconds to get to the trader, and 20 to 30 seconds back to your holding spot. This leaves you with very little time to buy guns and ammo. You better buy what you need in like 10 seconds, despite this being a game with like hundreds of weapons that you could choose from, especially if you are going for a perk like Survivalist. For me, it got to the point of constant annoyance. You're telling me these mercenaries can't fucking run to save their skin. That would have been fine, but what actually pisses me off is the amount of invisible barriers that stops you from every minute traversal option. Invisible barriers are something that exist in most games, but is blocking off this table really necessary? Why have a jump button if I'm not even allowed the basic courtesy of going over a railing? This game is filled with invisible barriers to everything besides flat ground, to the point that getting obnoxious with it. One time I was playing on the moon base that has low gravity, therefore higher jump height, and I hit something invisible while jumping. Wanna guess what that is? I think the footage speaks for itself. Jump in this game isn't a traversal option, it's a combat option. You use jump to go over crawlers, go over bigger enemies if you use double barrel or doomstick, or do damage by landing on enemies if the map design allows for it. Immersion. There is no tangible story or context of why you're doing the wave defense. Yes, you are mercenaries that keep the streets clean of Zeds, and Zeds are the clones of a mad scientist called Patriarch, but that's the extent of the context goes. Let's compare this to another game that was going stronger at the time. Payday 2. I picked Alaskan Deal map from Payday 2 to hammer home my current point. In Alaskan Deal, a character called Locke sets you and an arms dealer you work for, Butcher, up. Cops ambush you while he makes his escape. The objective goes from overseeing an arms deal to helping Butcher's people escape by setting them free, getting the captain out, and refueling the ship. All the while you have to stop cops from interfering with this process. After all said and done, you set sail to the international waters in Butcher's ship, living another day to maybe take revenge for this treachery. While all this happens, Bane gives you up-to-date instructions and makes comments about the situation. Not every map in Payday 2 is like this, but most of them have unique context beyond why you're there doing what you're doing in the place that you're doing. Explained clearly in-game with voice lines and mission briefings. In KF2, you shoot Zeds. It even tells you the exact amount that needs to be murdered each wave. It is simply too gamey. You know why you're here, to shoot Zeds, why would you ask anything else? Well, people actually ask for something else, so after a few years, they came up with the objective mode. Instead of just kill, you do objectives and they end with an ending cinematic. Pretty cool, right? Except they copied-pasted that few more times in the exact same way and sucked out all the novelty out of it like a succubus cosplaying as a vacuum, as if to berate players for wanting something fresh out of a clearly capable development team. This is Killing Floor 2, sucker. You kill Zeds and there are a variety of ways to kill Zeds with all the resistance and weakness swingies. What else do you want? Are you not entertained? This game can be punishing. Whenever I feel like playing the game, I click on the matchmaking thingy and it usually drops me into the middle of the game. The issue is that you only spawn once whoever is already in the server kills everything, which can take some time. On top of that, you don't spawn with enough money to start contributing to the team with good firepower. This is actually something that got improved in recent years. You used to get scraps of money for dropping in, and it wasn't even enough to buy a tier 2 weapon with full ammo, it was that terrible. The wave economy got adjusted for drop-ins, but that has the unfortunate circumstance of good teams swimming in money by the end game. Things used to be tighter on the money side, but I would take this over potential tedium. But having to wait before you can join is still a thing, and that process on average is around 5 minutes or so. So the basic act of just wanting to play the game gets punished by a wait time. Well, I'm a big boy, so I guess I can wait. Let's say if your health reaches 0 during the game, you don't go down like in most co-op games. You die and have to wait till the remaining teammates kill the rest of the horde. This can also take several minutes. It is actually weird that this co-op game doesn't have a down mechanic. Down mechanics are genuinely one of my favorite things about co-op games. Someone goes down and everyone has to go out there like a hero, rescuing the unfortunate victim, and downing creates a scenario with enough punishment for screwing up, but not so harsh that it isn't recoverable. Not to mention, most down mechanics in games lets you do other stuff like shoot your gun to cover your revive or your teammates. In KF2, you are out of the game if your health reaches 0, and it sucks for everyone involved. You lost a teammate that was doing damage, your teammate lost their guns and money, which means if enough people die during a wave, it creates a negative feedback loop of infinite modern day economy of inability to afford anything. If bulk of the team can't afford big guns, then you're fucked anyways, the match is over the next wave and you know it. Believe it or not, the game being punishing isn't a bad design choice. In fact, over time, I've come to understand that there is no such thing as an invalid design. But the way the punishment works in this game can get overwhelmingly tedious for everyone on the team. it is boring to wait if you die, and it's extremely tedious to clear the rest of the spawns with less teammates because Z health and numbers scale with enemy count. That's on top of the money hit you get for your team if 3 to 4 people die. Honestly, I feel like this game should have had a down mechanic before you go out for good. It would have done wonders to the tedium and created more interesting situations like having to step away from the main choke to get your flank party. Not to mention, it would have lessened the punishment when some random horseshit happens. Speaking of random horseshit, this game does have some stinker moments that happen. Before I elaborate on what is random horseshit, I have to clarify something. KF2 is best played when you have an open area with clear sight lines to hold. That's just a fact. You usually need some space from Zeds, and you don't want them to spawn too close, which is what can happen. The game has a lot of player tech and very specific takedowns over high value targets that you have to pretty much expect it to perform in order to get through situations cleanly. But the game also has a game director that can do something like sending 3 flash pounds already in rage just around the corner if your team is going strong enough. There are times you encounter already enraged flesh pounds before their global spawning roar even finishes. There's no clean way to get through that and someone's just gonna die. That's just how it goes. Because of the spawn logic in this game, Zeds can sometimes appear out of nowhere, despite the game not supporting spontaneous encounters because of its deliberate design and player capabilities. Maps have to be deliberately designed to allow open sidelines, choke points and minimal blind spots. But more often than not, maps are everything but that. Most maps are claustrophobic. Open areas have extra obstacles littered around to allow Z spawns and limit your movement and sideline options as a result. And as a result, you get ambushed out of nowhere on most maps. The map design for the bulk of the game is deliberately made to create panic situations, which the game doesn't really support. Even when the Tripwire/Saber just puts a community map into the game, they added them to limit movement options and sightlines by adding pointless garbage around every nook and cranny. If the game is meant to be more random and spontaneous, why is there such an emphasis on team composition and dozens of mechanics players can take advantage of to keep holding on to the control of the map? Because KF2 is a game where you don't want to lose control in any capacity. Nearly every perk have multitude of ways to help them with the map and enemy control, yet maps are deliberately designed to essentially fuck with players with random jump scares and invisible wands on anything that is knee high. Sure, maybe the intention is to keep players on their toes, but if that's the case, why is everything about the game this deliberate? This is a game where every weapon class has strengths against certain enemies. It heavily encourages a team to run different perks to heavily optimize damage output against the horde, not to mention the dodge economy between waves. You have trash clearers and big game hunters working alongside sharpshooter and commando to clear huge waves of problems together. Each sideline your team protects needs a variety of perks with different strengths against different enemies to actually survive with everyone intact, unless players are just stupidly good at holding a sideline on their own. Which is a rare sight, but I have seen few of them back in the day. Most of the time, the public lobby experience goes like this. Everyone picks a map that looks cool, gets their shit pushed in halfway because the map is just not that good and has no clear sidelines to hold. Everyone just picks a different map until they find something that is playable with how the game is structured. That map gets aced without any problems, and everyone collectively logs off to come back to the game after a few months. It is baffling that mechanics encourage deliberate play while the maps detest it. All of this contributes to my suffering as I play this game. Yes, games need punishment for failures. In single-player games, the punishment for failure is usually rolling back progress, while other games do punishment and reward cycles differently. But the inconsistency between the mechanics and the maps, alongside intentional punishments such as having to wait entire minutes before you are allowed back in, if your team even survives, borders it to being tedious. The game has fun micro moments, but things get old real quick. Doing a few waves that caps off with a boss fight is all you really do in this game. It is fun, don't get me wrong, but it is not something you would care to do on a regular basis, and the player count supports that. It's not uncommon to use the quick game feature and getting placed into an empty server or the server you left because you didn't want to play that map. When I was recording this, I kept running into the same names over the course of the week, which suggests that 5k daily players aren't exactly the actual number because where are these people? Servers are suspiciously empty. Yes, the game is bolted for its shitty economy. On top of this, not much has been done to shake up the gameplay over the course of 9 years, aside from adding new weapons of course. In fact, let's go through everything they have done to shake up the game. Don't worry, the list is short. Weapon upgrade system. Before this, you had tier 1 to tier 5 weapons that you were supposed to swap in a more or less predetermined order after each wave, but with this update, you now have the option to upgrade your existing weapons to make them stronger. The damage buff you get is a multiplication, so the system kinda sucks. Low tier weapons already have low damage, so multiplication of low damage to make damage numbers higher doesn't mean much. What you really want to do is grab already strong weapons and upgrade them. Not only this is cheaper than trying to make MP7 into an endgame gun, it also weighs less, so you can bring another strong gun to really up the ante. 2. Introduction of riders, new bosses, self-explanatory. 3. They added EDARs, which are just the worst. Aside from these 3 things, only thing they added are guns, which doesn't really shake how the game is played beyond the initial novelty. This game has been playing identically for the past 7 years. It is simply stale with not much going on, and it gets boring real fast after your initial dosage of fun, cause wave defense is the only thing you do. Only variety you really get are different perks, but what that really means is just which flavor of gun do you want to use. So you pick a flavor and drink it, and it's sweet and it's refreshing, but the glass was already full enough, and you really don't want a second glass of a different flavored juice. You could obviously order the second one, but increased consumption of different juices increases the risk of diabetes. Maybe you shouldn't drink it too much, considering you may not even like the new flavor, and that ends up what most people do. This is a game people sometimes get an urge to play, they play it for an hour or two and realize why they stop playing, only to repeat the cycle sometime later. Because at the end of the day, this game does have some genuinely fun moments from time to time, but it just gets boring real fast. Killing Floor 2 was a successful game, all things considered, despite its annoyance. But why is that the case? If we go back to 2015 when this game was released, the only co-op titles that were in active support phases were Payday 2 and Vermintide 2. Both of them were objective-based games. One used guns, the other used sharp objects. If you wanted a wave defense formula, this was literally your only choice. Co-op games as a genre is in this weird spot where every co-op game appeals to a certain crowd, but there aren't enough of them to really compete for player numbers. What usually happens is that the co-op game players pick one game as their default and play other titles on the side from time to time. No need for competition when the games sell to the same group of people and get played. Hell, Killing Floor 2 was my second co-op game of choice after Payday 2. In an environment like this, Killing Floor 2 stood on its own as an experience worth going through from time to time. Why am I complaining about basic premise and execution of the game I actually played? Because that's all there is to it. If the basic premise loses its charm, you lose interest, and the game itself rarely attempted to keep things fresh enough throughout its incredibly long life cycle. Yet no one seems to even care that this is all you do in this game. Kill, 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 kill the boss, rinse and repeat, and the game got nothing but universal praise for what it's worth. This honestly makes me think that all the praise that comes for this game comes from a place of, hey, this game is neat, and that's it. I get it, no one needs to nerd about games or think why they enjoy or dislike something, but I just can't help myself. And hey, I'm not judging people that plays this game on a regular basis. We all have our vices, and if this game ticks the boxes for you, more power to you. If anything, it is nice to have choices. This is simply my horseshit opinion put onto the internet for the express purpose of sharing my suffering. Do you wanna do the same or disagree? Comments are below for discussions. Stay safe, folks. Have a nice day. Ending note. Tripwire slash Saber and Overkill slash Starbreeze and Ghost Ship Games all have publisher ties to Embracer Group in some way. So Embracer has indirect control over the bulk of the co-op game market. And the rest is on the Tencent. Long live the capitalism and overcorporatization.